I think this is a superpower that women have, that they are able to bring people together and to create that solidarity and that unity in order for us, to create a better system that serves more people, more like the majority, not just, a privileged few.
في الركبة اليمنى وكسر عظيم.
This is Colmena Fund.
Welcome back to Resist, Persist and Reimagine, the Colmena Fund podcast where we explore the voices, strategies and stories behind women's political leaderships across the Global South. We have reached the final episode of this podcast series. And on this special occasion, we have a very interesting interview with Mariam Jalabi, activist, revolutionary, and co-founder of the Syrian Women's Political Movement, an organization that works to ensure gender equality and women participation in the decision-making spaces for the future of Syria.
I am Mariam Jalabi. I come from Syria, and I am a co-founder of the Syrian Women's Political Movement. That started with 7 people, and then it grew to 30, it grew to over 200 now, recently. And I am also someone who worked with the Syrian opposition before the fall of the regime for over 13 years, representing them to the United Nations.
Born in Damascus, Mariam abandoned a career in marketing to dedicate her life to activism and supporting the opposition against the Assad's regime in Syria, and participated from the beginning in the meetings of the resistance that occurred in Turkey, Lebanon, and Egypt. She also founded the office in New York of the National Council, a coalition of opposition organizations with the objective of establishing a modern, civil, democratic Syrian state, and has been representing the coalition in the United Nations. In this conversation, Jalabi talks about the ideals that shape her activism and her fight for a feminist political participation that can shape the foundations of a new Syria after the regime's fall. Let's get started.
So I come from a family that has been involved in resisting the Assad regime from a long time ago. I remember my mom looking for my dad in detention centers and in prisons. It's the regime that has been in power for 54 years. So I grew up with it. It's like always there in the back of my mind. My family had to flee and go to different countries. And we ended up in Canada, and then I ended up coming to New York City. And when the Syrian revolution started in 2011, it was very important for me. It was not even a choice, I think, if I may say. I got involved right away. And I right away noticed that there weren't enough women, enough youth, the people who were coming out in demonstrations on the street. And that stayed with me and with the people that I was working with. And then, as I said, we started as a group of women with the Syrian Women Political Movement to make sure that women and also men and all of the other groups, components of society that are marginalized, that don't have the same kind of representation and voices within the political process, within the political democratic process that we're trying to create, to come together, to work together, because we believed, and I personally, it's my motto in life, is that the whole of us, when we're working together in solidarity, is so much more powerful than the sum of our parts, than if we're working individually. So this is my motivation, and this is how I've started. It's become, the path of life that I have been working with, is in working in solidarity with other feminists, other people who believe in full inclusion and democracy, whether it's within Syria, within the region, and globally. So it's the biggest challenge I believe that we have as women is that we live in structures and systems that are patriarchal and militarized. And these systems are run by the privileged few that have access to the money and the resources. And even though they are not the majority, we are so much more when you're thinking about it. People who believe in inclusion and equality and justice, we are so much more in numbers and in force. However, the access we have to the decision-making spaces, that is limited. Specifically now, we're living when we felt, in 30 years after the Beijing, platform was in the action plan, and all of the work that has been done at the United Nations, all of the resolutions about the inclusion of women, in political processes. It feels that we're going back But in reality, really, we have grown so much and we have become so much more powerful. But it is still challenging because we are not in those spaces where real decisions are being made. And I want to reiterate here something, a feminist colleague yesterday in one of our meetings who said that we women are in some places sometimes like physically present, but we are not strategically present in those spaces. And that is the biggest challenge. How can we make sure that those spaces that we are in are strategically influential and we can make decisions through them and create change in the world? I think that's the biggest challenge we have right now.
Resist, persist, and reimagine. In the midst of the Syrian revolution, Mariam and a group of other women activists started the Syrian Women's Political Movement, a feminist organization with the objective of representing women in the Syrian political space and confirming a unified women's front. But especially, the impact of the movement reflected on the presence and participation of women in relevant decision-making processes.
I do want to emphasize that when we came together as a group of women leaders who wanted to be part of the political platform, I remember when we first started and we called it the Syrian Women's Political Movement, that we got advice that, don't use political because political is not equated with women. Like it's about like working with civil society groups, it's about services, it's about development, but doing political, it was a little bit too much for us to venture into. And then we're like, no, this is exactly what we want to do. And this is our added value. And we believe that more of us doing this kind of political work is so much more important when we also create a network of other political leaders in the region. So one of the strategies we have been using is that not only as members within the movement working together, but also making an allyship with other groups that are working in the region, making a network of women that we're working with on the ground, in the diaspora, in other communities. And one of the things we've even done, which is, I believe, is very important, is that we as Syrian political movement, working within a conflict zone, right? But because we believe that we live under the same systems of oppression all over the globe, women being second-class citizens. For example, like in the US, a woman always, like from statistics is shown, she makes like economically, even though she's carrying 75% of actually the economy of this country, which was really shocking to me when I realized that, she makes 85 cents to the dollar that a man makes. So us as Syrian people who are trying to create a whole new system, we decided that we need to talk to other women globally. So there is a program that we have within the Syrian political movement where it's called Women Decide, where we meet with even like Scandinavian women who have it so much more together in a lot of ways, right? Like Iceland, going visiting women from Iceland, meeting, with the Icelandic government and Icelandic parties, and like working with women in the Nordic Mediation Network, because these women have gotten certain lessons that we need to learn from. However, we have so much more also to give because we're coming from a very volatile situation. We have worked with emergency structures, like how do you create a society that is able to protect its citizens when you are in conflict. These are some things that we have learned that we can also give. So I believe like a very strong way of working together is working like strategically with a global network of feminists, with regional network of feminists, and with local network of feminists.
This is Call Mina Fund.
This effort is accompanied by Jalabi's reflection about the need to move the center of political debate and work from the West and global North to the global South.
I think in the world environment that we're living now, it's very important that we think about the localization, I think, of our work. It's very important that we take the lead from women who are on the ground and what they are doing. Like, how are they making use of the limited resources that they have? I keep talking about how we need to go local, because women who are on the ground are the ones who know how to actually service their communities, how to work within their communities. And extrapolating on that, we need to also remember that now with CSW, there's so many of our colleagues who couldn't make it. They do not have visas. They cannot come to the US. They cannot come to a lot of the Western countries, or to Europe. We need to start rethinking, like imagining like a new world order where women are actually able to attend and have the spaces. So we need to move more to the global south. We need to move more to areas where we can gather in a way that is we solve our own problems. This is how we see it, like within the Syrian context. This is why we went for the conference, the minute the regime fell, is that we need to be back in our country and working there. So if we want to create change in our world, we need to start from working within our spaces and being in our world, where maybe maybe CSW, gathering somewhere else in the world where more people can attend and more people can be part of it. These are some of the strategies that we really need to think about, is that how we shift the center from Western centralized power to something that is more like closer to the people, to the south, to the Swana region, to, the Far East, where we really are creating new systems and new ways of living and can teach the rest of the world of how to become a better democracy, a better inclusive governing system.
Resist, persist, and reimagine. In order to achieve this, Mariam believes that the role of philanthropy must be one of supporting the groups that are working locally and their vision, not trying to impose any type of agendas that don't come from the ground up.
You don't work in silos and it's just the privileged, bringing in the privilege. You bring everybody together. I think this is a superpower that women have, that they are able to bring people together and to create that solidarity and that unity in order for us, to create a better system that serves more people, more like the majority, not just, a privileged few. When we're thinking about funding and supporting women in the global south or in non-democratic structures, it's very important to remember that it's all different contexts. Like, I can speak, for a certain region, for a certain people. Other people can speak from a certain region and other, contexts. It's very important that we involve the people who are on the ground, who are actually doing the work, who are involved in the political processes, to tell us what is it that they need. How do they need the support? Where do they need the money to go, the funding to go? What is it that will help them get to the spaces where they need to go? And sometimes, this is a lot of work. Sometimes it has to be individually, tailored. If you really want to get somebody to the right space, if you have the right candidate to come to the right space, to push in the right, cracks of the system to create the change that we want, we need to work with them individually, personally, to create that change, to see where do we need to put our funding. I say go back to the people who are on the ground and ask them, and they will give you the design and the lead, and we need to trust them and have confidence in that they know what they're doing. I believe that this is very important, that we have that kind of, that dialogue where they're telling us, and we call it sometimes, top to bottom or bottom to up, it can never be us or people who are not in the context telling them, what they need to do or giving them the money for specific things. They have to be the ones who are telling us where they need the support, where they need the money to go, whether it's for a group or individuals.
This is Call Me a Fund.
Jalabi believes that the world is facing a crucial moment of change, one that needs to redefine what democracy is, its mechanisms, and the role that women must play in the governments of the world.
Democracy has gotten us in where we are today in the US. There is this politician, I don't remember, I think it was Churchill, who said, democracy is the least worst system of all of the terrible systems of how to govern. So I think we are part of a human evolution where we need to see new systems, we need to reimagine about how to become a true participatory democracy and to put the right people in the right spaces where there are enough checks and balances to service most people. And I believe that women are really capable of doing this, because I believe women are actually have their emotions, and the way they use their emotional intelligence is more inclusive, and it includes a lot more levels and variables that they think about. The way they spend money is different. The way they adhere to systems is different, because in the end, it's the end result they look at. How is this going to serve my people? So I believe that we need to support women to become more represented in these democratic structures, who internally, when they're part of these democratic systems, will also create the change and the precedents in creating better democracies. Today in the world, there are, from what I believe, it's only 13% heads of state. There are only, the statistics show it's only something like 26% only of world population that has women in decision-making spaces or in lead in decision-making spaces. There are only 12 governments or 9 governments, yesterday we were talking about this, that has parity in cabinet members. So the numbers for women in decision-making spaces in democratic structures or none, or all of the kind of different political systems we have, women representation in it is very limited. And the more women we get into these political spaces, the more creative ways I believe we will have in how to practice democracy and make it more to the service of the people, and a better future for all, and protection of human rights and more justice. I totally believe that this is a necessity now, especially now in 2025. It's no longer a luxury.
Resist, persist, and reimagine. More than 13 years after the beginning of the Syrian civil war, on December 8, 2024, rebel forces took control of Damascus, capital of the country, and effectively delivered a decisive blow to Bashar Assad's regime. This moment marked the end of a cruel and gruesome dictatorship that had lasted for more than 5 decades, and was a glimpse of hope for the region. Jalabi shares the possibility that she envisions for a new Syrian state after Assad's defeat, and the hope for a better future that the people in the country have.
I want to talk about a story that I have been telling, which was so impressive to me, and it gave me the sense of hope and why I'm doing this work that I'm doing. Over 50 years of a dictatorship, when we did the conference in Damascus after the fall of the regime, where we invited all of our members to come and be part of, one of our members from the Syrian women political movement came from Raqqa, which is the furthest north of Syria. And because of the lack of transportation, the terrible economy in the country, it's a country where 95% of the population, over 90% of the population, lives under poverty line. One of our members, who has her own organizations and who's been running this community work, comes from Raqqa, from all of the way, for a 2-day trip after 2 weeks of a cesarean section. She had her baby of 2 weeks with her, named Salam, and she brought her with her to this conference. For me, that dedication, and she comes with a smile and with this amazing energy, to participate in this and to be part of this kind of celebration, but also establishing ourselves, putting our foot down and creating our own space, because nobody's going to give you a space. As women, we need to go forward and say, this is our space, and take it. She wanted to be part of that. And when I see women like that, and I'm like, how could I not be supportive and hopeful and open to what we might have, in the future, when we have women like that who are doing, this amazing work and being part of this movement that we're hoping, will bring, will support and bring, change and hope for more women in the country. And I want to add also one thing is that it's very important that we remember, Syria right now is it's in a space where it's an opportunity for us to create change, for all of the Syrian people to come. And it's a very diverse country. and there are a lot of now skirmishes that has been happening and fights, and it's not very stable, but we are hopeful because people are sick of the war, sick of the killing, and they want to create a new space, a new governing way that is adherent to international law, international human rights, and service of all of the people. So it's a very hopeful time for us to actually be part of this change, and women are making sure that they are part of this change, and that is, to me, a very a light, and in a very dark time, in a time where we're feeling that things are going back, but there are so many opportunities that are also opening that we need to be part of and participate and support and fund and give a lot more credence to and legitimacy and credibility to. And I think that is something that we could do together as feminists, global feminists, and part of a lot of different parts of the world, especially the global south.
This is Call Mina Fund.
We have reached the end of our episode. We are incredibly grateful for these powerful insights that Jalabi has shared with us. If you found this episode meaningful, please subscribe, share, leave a review, or send it to someone who needs to hear it. You can learn more about our work at the Colmena Fund by visiting our website or following us on social media. This is the last episode from this series, so if you're just learning about a podcast, we invite you to check out the previous episodes of Resist, Persist, and Reimagine. Thank you for listening and for standing with us in the fight for women's political power.
خطة في الركبة اليمنى وكسر الناقض.
This is Call Mina Fund.